I'm going to read you something from the 1988 CyberPunk manual. Diversity and unity. It is now accepted among historical scholars that in the decades before the collapse, America suffered from the sickness of racism and cultural identity. Everyone wanted to be seen as special. Every group had to be equal or preferably better than its neighbors, and fought to protect its special rights. If anyone had something that someone else wanted, they were painted as racist, sexist, elitist, or worse. This divisive me first attitude eventually tore the fabric of American culture apart and caused it to self-destruct in a fireball of competing ideologies, none of which truly recognize each other's validity. Diversity inexorably to anarchy. So the reason I find this interesting is because Cyberpunk was a game created in 1988, a pen and paper game, and it tried to predict the future. And in very many ways it did. From the technology that people were using there to this particular bit of lore, of cultural lore. And now when I play the CD Projekt Red Cyberpunk, besides the human augmentations, it doesn't really seem that futuristic. I mean, sure, there are a couple of things here and there which make it a little bit more futuristic, but other than that, I mean, what do you get? You get VR, you get internet, you get people able to have computers everywhere. Feels like day-to-day life. Again, the only exception is the cyber implants and, you know, like people able to just put the USB in their head and that type of thing, which is cool. But back then, back in 1988, like the idea of someone able to use a computer and hack into someone else's computer, that was something that wasn't possible with the technology at the time. And the idea that everyone would have computers, or you could have like a phone with a lot of access to data on it, that was just miles ahead of its time. And these people managed to predict so much. And when it comes to culture, like this diversity and unity thing, I wonder, like, why is it so great? What does it make it so good? And I think the reason why this irony and I guess like this criticism flies is because it's adequate. You could definitely see where things were going from if you are in 1988 in the United States. And they make fun of something that exists in the real world. But when I play CD Projekt Red version of Cyberpunk, it's almost devoid of any real criticism. Because I was playing it, and it feels like the message is corporations are evil, man. You know, the corporations are out to get you. And to be honest, corporations are evil. Like, they can definitely be evil, especially if they become large enough and they have more money than governments. I mean, it's pretty much like an authoritarian government if you think about it, like the way they're being ran and the way they try to create corporate drones by indoctrinating people in thinking the same. And they make absolutely sure that they spy on their employees both when they're at work and when they're at home on social media. So there are aspects that you can definitely criticize corporations for, none of which are being criticized by CD Projekt Red. I mean, the way they criticize corporations is to simply have like this Marxist version on the rich are evil because they're rich. When in reality, from my personal experience, corporations are evil because the people in charge think they're doing good. It's literally the road to hell is paved by good intentions. So they think they're on the right side of history. They're thinking that they're changing the world for the better. And this is why they're doing evil things. And of course, like some corporations legitimately just do bad things because they want to make more money. Like, for example, Apple, when they outsource to China, or they do business with nations that have authoritarian regimes and questionable human rights violations, and at the same time, they say that they're a progressive company. They do this for their bottom line. Like, they just want more money. But that's kind of the exception, I think. I think that most of the corporations nowadays just do bad things because they think that's how they are going to change the world for the better. But anyway, let's talk about the game a little bit more. I mean, if you play the corporate ladder, and it's really in the beginning, like right when you start the game, you find out that your company murders the European Space Council. And you hear two people talking and saying, oh, wow, if it ever gets out that this is us, we're going to be in big trouble. And someone else says, oh, well, no one is going to find out. And the few people that know, we're going to assassinate them. And I'm thinking, this could have been so much better and a lot more scary than that. Like the idea of a company just sending assassins to get someone, like a little bit meh. It would be more scary and more realistic if they would say, well, the media is in our pockets and they won't report on the story, and social media is going to censor anyone that talks about it. We're going to label people conspiracy theorists if they talk about it. That would have been a lot more accurate. That criticism would have made people smile, and they would be like, oh yeah, I see. Well, in the future, I guess, corporations can do just outright nasty stuff out in the open, because what's going to happen? Like, people aren't going to do anything about it. It's a lot more scary when someone does something in the open and people see it, but like there's nothing being done about it, because like no one has the courage to challenge them, and the few people that talk about them, well, they're labeled as crazy anyway, and they're being dealt with that way. You don't even need to assassinate them. But the version that Cyberpunk went is I guess like a very politically correct version, and it's not going to upset anyone. It's the classic cliche of the company just sending assassins after people. Wasted time and resources, in my opinion. And then you look at the clothing. The people in companies, they have suits. They're well dressed, and the people that are in the bars and they're on the streets, they're dressed with spiky hair and punk. An accurate version of Cyberpunk, if you actually wanted to make a little bit of a criticism, I would have had the corporations, the people at corporate, the ones that are higher up, they would be dressed like punk. They would have like the weird hairstyles and the progressive pink neon hair, and like you look at Jack Dorsey and the way he dresses. I mean, the guy was in a suit and had like nose piercings and stuff, and this like long ass beard, looking like he's the Rasputin of tech. Yeah, like that's more accurate, because like the people in companies, they're the really progressive ones, and they're the ones talking about saving the world and ending systemic racism, even though they're in power, like they're part of the system. And meanwhile, the people on the street should be dressed like common Americans, basically. Just like jackets and some jeans, and dressed nice and tight. Because like you notice that this is the trend. Like it's starting to become that the people who used to be rebels and listen to punk are now in corporations. They're now in higher up positions, and it's now like rebellious to actually dress the same way that our grandparents used to dress. It's a lot more weird, right? Now it's all progressive. It's like, look how Will Smith's son is dressing, and it's like, oh, he's a boy and he's wearing a dress. Isn't that progressive? So like that is what I would expect. But instead, I get this watered down thing, which is kind of to be expected. I mean, CD Projekt Red is a corporation, right? Like, corporations aren't going to make fun of corporations, because it's like, why would they expose some of the tactics and things that they're doing to their own employees? But anyway, right, let me know what you think. It's just my opinion. I'm not saying that this makes Cyberpunk a bad game. I'm just saying, like, it's a lot of missed opportunities where you could have had some really good South Park type of humor into the game. Because right now it's just like, meh. It's just, how should I say, mediocre. It's just like what I would expect. Very cliche. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, tell me in the comment section why I think that is, and I'll see you guys in the next video.